So I used to love coming down here because the theater right here now is AMC, and it was something else before. Even came here with my small group. And yeah, they ditched me after the movie. Simon and them, yeah, truly. We saw the movie together, and then I was doing something and went outside and they were all gone. They literally ditched me. I'm like, that's extremely childish. But whatever, they did ditch me. I'm like, whatever. They did these things that I'm like, okay, and I let them go. I stayed in the group and, tried and did the right things. I was the one who always brought birthday cards. I was the one who always brought birthday gifts. I was the one that always really thought about the food and put a lot of thought into what food I was bringing to the group and everything else. I spent a lot of time thinking about them. And then I helped everybody out in the group. Each of them, I helped them all out with all kinds of different issues. But don't want to get on that. I like that movie theater. And this area here, if they have vacancy storefronts and that 78 goes, you should establish yourself before the construction and think about getting the construction people to come up this way. But there's no breakfast place here. Now, there's the White Palace down the street, but up that way, there's a breakfast street on Wabash, but you can have a breakfast place in here. They should open a breakfast place. Here's some storefronts, open up a breakfast place. And that'll bring morning traffic. They have a little coffee shop, but it's not a breakfast place. But the coffee shop will bring the workers in from the 78. And then they have my store. If I had a girlfriend, I love Victoria's Secret and Pink. And my girl who I dated, she worked for Victoria's Secret as a manager. And then she went to Wet Seal. Now, Wet Seal worked with younger girls. Victoria's Secret worked with girls in the 20s and up. I don't know if they do well with the teenies and down. Wet Seal did very well with teenage girls to preteen girls. That was their target market, Wet Seal. Victoria's Secret is basically college age and above, 18 and above. That's when they really start getting into Victoria's Secret. But again, they have a hot pot place, but they don't have dim sum. So that hot pot could have dim sum if they want to do an Asian breakfast. And so, again, Wagyu and some puff pastries and so on. I mean, you can have breakfast and the puff pastry with egg inside. Make some different types of scrambled egg and then wrap it in a puff pastry. You can put bacon bits in that. Think of it as a bald burrito. And you make it and you wrap it with the dough, and it is that wrap. Now they have the porcelain where it's clear, and they have it with shrimp inside, and they want you to see the shrimp. And the other ones are with the dough, and they wrap it, and you can do all kinds of breakfast, different types of eggs, different mixtures with the eggs. I mean, truly, think about what you can do. And this Roosevelt collection, these property owners are truly going to be blessed with all the retail activity that's going to go in and build this association. They're going to be able to bring all kinds of incredible benefits to the people that live here, like waiving their association dues. If the storefronts generate lots of sales activity, you don't have to charge any association dues. It's the same way in Rosemont, because they have so many businesses, they waive the property tax, and sometimes they get a property tax refund. It depends on how the businesses do, because of all the big hotels and entertainment, and that's why they wanted the casino. But you can do that with an association. So that association can waive the association fees, and then they can add more benefits in, like free cable TV and other services into them, enhance the garage, many other benefits because of the mixed use. And so that goes into the real estate value. So when they sell the places in the Rosemont, they take in count that you don't have to pay property tax, and the real estate value is more. They sell the unit for more, and if it gets a refund, they average that in what years it does, and they charge them more. And people in Rosemont, where I had one of my friends who lived there, a female, and people don't want to sell. It's very sticky. Turnover is very rare because you have to pay way above market price. So think about the city not doing it, but think about the associations doing it by doing proper business. So like the Chinatown I'm going into, if they do the 78s, or here's Mariano's. I don't know, what this land is attached to or who owns this land, but they're going to do incredible more business. That Mariano's needs to prepare for increase in demand. So when you do something, you have to understand the stability of the market around you. Are things coming into the market, or are they leaving the market? So where you're today and where will you be tomorrow, and you have to be able to diversify. Maybe you would have to shrink that Mariano's, but that's no problem. You can shrink the space and right-size it if there's a contraction in the market, but you have to plan for that and watch. And if I was running the Mariano's, I would be watching what was going on in the environment around me. People moving in, people moving out. Is the population getting younger and more single? Or are they young couples, meaning dual income, no kids, or dinks? Or are they sinks, single income, no kids? Or are they family income, or Fink is family income, no kids, but I forget what it is for family. Basically say family. And are they one-child family like in China? So you're not going to get a lot of kids because you need a lot of families. But my family had 5 kids. And so you get a lot of kids. In China, you don't get a lot of kids. You need a lot of couples. And so what do you get? Very couple heavy. Lots of adults, very few children. So it's top heavy, bottom light. And the baby boom made it bottom heavy and top light. And we went from bottom heavy and top light. So we had a lot of people doing sweat equity, building the country. And you need a lot of bottom heavy and not a lot of sweat equity. And so when we're building in immigration, you're looking at maybe they're non-resident aliens still, but they're going to live here. They're permanent. And they're going to bring a baby boom. Now, they don't dilute the vote, but they can do lobbying and many other things. So it's not like they can't take action packs and they can't favor a politician over another. Just because you don't have a vote doesn't mean you can't swing and fund and donate to different political campaigns. You can. It doesn't mean you don't have influence. It's just not direct influence. It's indirect influence, more behind the scenes influence than at the polls influence. And so it doesn't mean you're closed out of the system. And so you have to understand that. It's how you represent yourself. It's like my friends in Saudi Arabia. They understood they're permanent resident aliens, but they still have an impact. And they can give to political campaigns and so on and affect the community through different civic activities and other ways to influence. So it's indirect, but they can still sway and have influence on what's going on in the community. So don't think you're left out. It's just you have to figure out how you need to communicate in an effective legal manner to attack the issues that you think that are relevant to your particular community. So it's not like you can't have associations. You can create an association of resident aliens. Truly, you can create a national association of resident aliens. And that's a group. And it has a national PAC, and they break off into local groups of resident aliens. And they have representation. So don't act or believe you're closed out of the system, as God wants you to do things correctly. When one door closes, another door opens, and he wants you to do things intelligently and work with the system, no matter what the system is. It doesn't even mean North Korea. It's the same thing. You're dealt a certain hand, and you need to work with the hand you're dealt with. And so I disagreed with the civil rights movement. I've never agreed with the civil rights movement. To me, that was an ignorant way of going about. I never agreed with the protests with the Vietnam War or any of that. That is not how godly wants it. And the head pastor in Atlanta that had the most influence with the Selma thing, I should say, he wasn't supportive of Martin Luther King. Read his own notes. He wanted to go about it a different way. My client grew up as a black man in there, and he didn't believe in the civil rights movement. He's a black man. We had discussions. He called them uppity blacks. What he meant was that doing things and ruffling the feathers, instead of working through the system and understanding how to work with the system and how to move things correctly and effectively without ruffling feathers, means you can get things accomplished because their guard is down and their ears are open. But what they did, and as we had a conversation, they brought up their guard and their ears closed, and now we're at war. And so they did things ineffectively. But you have to understand, and his wife's a teacher, and they're very focused on education and educating blacks, but how to do things effectively. And they're on the same page, and they were my clients, and we had great discussions. And he agrees, and I didn't nurture this conversation, meaning he just was sharing his things. First time I heard uppity black. That didn't come from me. That came from my black client. And he said, I don't understand. They do things incorrectly. and how we had it between whites and blacks. We worked with the system we had. And he said, I never experienced any discrimination. And if there was something off, it was addressed. So I didn't have to worry. I grew up down south, he said, and I loved growing up down south. But we had this understanding that you had to work with the system. And you had to understand how to work through the system properly to move through with the least resistance to get the situation resolved, because friction only causes battle. It wastes time, money, and energy. And so he agreed, and his philosophy was my philosophy. And maybe that's why we ended up being clients. But I disagree. And I don't hold it against. I love Martin Luther King. He did the best with what he did, but I don't agree with the method. I don't believe we needed that unrest, that we needed to do things that way to stir it, to stir the pot, to have people beaten and killed and mutilated, and city of Philadelphia, like with the Black Panthers, freaking bombings and whole blocks going to war. I don't agree. And I have friends that agree with me. And I learned at Senator McCain's office that you have to understand how referendums work and everything else. And there needs to be financial literacy on the system. But when you say the system is blind, it's not blind. You can put pressure correctly. But when you say that things can't, I disagree. And I try to do things flow like water. She looks cute. I like Asian girls. But you flow like water, like Bruce Lee says. And he has a whole martial arts on doing that. But my partner David, when I met him, what was the appeal between us? We looked for paths of least resistance. We looked for unmet demand, untapped markets, markets that are underserved. How to go into a market with a unique offering that would have immediate high demand. That's another way when there's heavy competition in a market, finding out something in that market that is not being served, that has incredibly high demand, and that if you offer it, you can get extreme market penetration fast. So we synced up because we understand that. He made unique products and offering. He analyzed, and he believed in flowing like water, path of least resistance. That's why I don't like arguing. I can debate, but I'm not there to win the debate. I'm there to get the right thing through, to move things forward correctly. So if I move the stone incorrectly, it hurts me as well. Because if I misplace it and it falls, I'm under it, you're under it, we're both under it, and now we're both in a very bad dilemma. So if the Republicans and Democrats don't understand this, that it hits their family, it hits their friends, it hits their community, so you want to move it in the correct direction. And Larry Kudlow, he used to preach that on his show, that you need to move things and the best strategy needs to be there regardless, and the parties that win present the best and most effective strategies that end up with the country in the best place. And those are the people that need to be in office. whether it's my party or the other party. But whoever puts the people in the best place, because if not, then I can cut off the nose to spite the face, but I'm worse off, my family's worse off, my country's worse off, and that doesn't work. So you have to understand that. And so he wrote the JFK Revolution and talked about the Blue Dog Democrats. Socially liberal, fiscally conservative, but not socially liberal like you think liberal today. JFK, go into his whole thing, not the same social liberal. The liberal today, that went way off the reservation. That went to abomination. That's totally different. That is not a JFK liberal. That is not a Blue Dog Democrat. Like, who was Lynn Swan in Philadelphia, I think, and he was running for Pennsylvania, and I liked him. I think he was a Blue Dog Democrat. But the whole point is, you understand this, and you start working through these things in the correct medium. But there's also when you're terrorizing and you have to defend yourself, because eventually they back you into a corner. And you can't continuously get beaten on. But what do they do with the tailgating or the leg shaking, everything else? They just continuously beat on me. That is an insane position. No justification, just desecration. So that isn't justice. That's the farthest thing from righteousness and justice. And that's what I found out with the liberals that I hung out. I went into Boys Town, and, we had this thing at Mutual of Omaha, and it went Dave, who worked for SCORE before, and I went in there, and we went in together, and I gave him a chance. Now, he screwed me over, and also all those people that worked in that liberal community in Boys Town, they screwed me over as well. And I've given them so many chances and ignored their molestation and their rape and many other things. I'm not turning the cheek anymore. I'm in it to end them. They crossed the line. I gave, and they showed me decade after decade after decade that they weren't worth it. And so I'm not willing to give them any more chances. There's a bridge too far. So this isn't a perpetual, you screw me over and I keep on giving you chances. That's a license to sin. And no more chances. Now I break you. And that's my goal. Starting with the youth, getting them from Young One World and many others to never even think about that as a choice. By showing them how it can bring them horrible things and how it can damage the country, how it can damage productivity, how it can cause great harm, unbelievable harm, how it can impoverish, how it brings up all these things. Remember, it drives up all healthcare costs unbelievably. And then you're going to pay for it on the back end with dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive, cancers, you name it. And that drives up the end-of-life costs as well, driving up healthcare again. So if I can communicate this effectively, I close off the pipeline, and the pipeline is no longer there, and now I just have to deal with what is there. And then I work on getting those that convert, and those that don't, okay, that's fine. We just have a policy that you're in it and you die in it. And we minimize the damage. So we couldn't eliminate, but eventually it dies off. And what you're left is with smaller and smaller amounts. And that's what I want to do. So I want to close off the pipeline. And eventually they will disappear. And it will shrink and disappear naturally. As they don't move in that direction and they move in the right direction, things naturally return to where they should be. Adam Smith, invisible hand, per se. But anyways, I'm down here in the morning, and I'm going to let the video go, but have a good morning.